The Joker is dropped in theaters. That means it's time to start talking spoilers and controversy. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Go ahead and spoil away with all of your thoughts on this movie. No need for spoiler warnings. Whatever you think about the controversy, the end of the movie, anything, talk about it freely. Let's have a nice, lively discussion. If you haven't watched the movie yet, don't watch my spoiler review. Watch my non-spoiler review right up there after you've watched the movie. Then join in, have your thoughts on all this stuff. If you're new to one of my spoiler reviews, they're intentionally a little bit more laid back. They're not as fast-paced and edited as my normal content. They're intended to be a little bit more podcast style. With that in mind, down below in the description and in the pinned comment, I'll have time codes if you want to skip ahead to different kind of sections of the movie. If you specifically want to know my thoughts on a specific thing that I'm going to discuss, time codes are down below. With that said, let's go ahead and get started talking about the Joker. I'm going to kick things off just talking about the controversy surrounding this movie. As soon as it debuted at a film festival about a month ago, I mean, audiences seem to be pretty split on it. Majority, over 50%, seem to be giving it very high praise, and then you had a very vocal minority that was quite large in size with all kinds of issues with it, calling it a hollow copy of Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy, calling it a movie that's aping Martin Scorsese but doesn't understand the perspective of what he was trying to do. Movies calling it dangerous, a celebration of a psychopath, a celebration of some of the things in our society that are the most terrifying. But like I said, a bunch of other people just loving the movie. So that was all before even press screenings started for normal people like myself in normal parts of the country. And so this movie has been getting people talking. Todd Phillips, the director, actually in Warner Brothers uninvited the press from the red carpet premiere of the movie because they were so tired of being asked questions about the controversy and the violence inside of the film. So I thought, as we're doing a spoiler review, might as well kind of dive into all this stuff. And on kind of a surface level, my take on it, I think for the most part, I tend to think that it's good to tell stories that explore things. So if right now we have a problem in American society of mentally unstable white males becoming violent, telling a story about that and exploring some of the reasons behind that seems like a good thing to me. And that's the way I would perceive this movie. And I would say that this is a movie that was a good character study. It was a movie that had something to say. It was a movie that has a very clear thesis. When you move into the third act and you've got Joker on the talk show, he pretty clearly states his kind of take on, when you don't have everything that kind of happens to him throughout the movie of losing the services that were kind of giving him mental health and kind of stating like, what do you think is going to happen if you don't take care of the mentally ill? Something like that inside of the film. It's like, that's a pretty good little observation, and it's a movie that has a statement, and it makes it, and it tells it both, states it, and it tells it through the form of story. So that would be my general take on it. That I don't think it's a bad thing to tell a story about a difficult subject inside of our culture. Now where I can understand a lot more where people are kind of coming from is the idea that perhaps it's a dangerous film to present. Not because that I would watch it and be like, oh yeah, it was celebrating the Joker. I watched it and I went, oh, it's a tragedy about the fall of Arthur into the Joker. That we're watching someone who needs help, that's not getting the help that they need. They don't have people in their life to guide them away from all the dangerous things, and so they drift towards the violence. I watch it as a, generally speaking, mostly stable person and see the tragedy of the story. And the fear isn't that normal people or healthy people are going to watch the movie and turn violent. It's what about that 1%, the people that are on the fence and unstable, and they watch the movie and they see what happens to the Joker. They're the person that thinks like Arthur. They're in that state like him. And so the way that Arthur in the film does not see the world around him properly, small percentage of people would see the film in that light, and it would be dangerous. Now, you might say that's not a good reason not to make a movie. Here's the comparison I would make on that point. And I've talked about this a little bit on my channel and on social media and things like that. I have been a very vocal critic of 13 Reasons Why, and I've never seen it. And so like I've been one of those people like, who are these people judging the Joker without having seen it? But if I turn the situation around, where have I done that? And I think it's always best with these things to go into things with the best assumption about other people and try to apply it to ourselves. When have I done the thing that this person's doing that I don't think that they should do? So I've done this with 13 Reasons Why. And I have a history of being a first responder at a high school the day after there was a high school suicide. I've had a number of suicides in my life where I've been very close to families involved in it and things like that. It's something that's very... I wouldn't want to watch it just because it's not good. It wouldn't be entertaining to me. But beyond that, they did things inside of it. The basic plot line of it perceived to me as not that it glorifies, not that it doesn't show the horrors of suicide, but there's a side to it that it becomes a revenge fantasy for that small percentage of people, for the unstable person that they watch the movie, that they would have a tendency to think suicidally, and so they watch it and they have the bad interpretation of it, not the anti-bullying side, but they see people paid attention, these letters were read or tapes were listened to or whatever it is after I died. That's a dangerous thought for that small percentage of people. And that's the way that I think, okay, I disagree with the critics of the Joker, the controversy type people, but I can see where they're coming from because of the way that I perceive 13 Reasons Why. And I think that's a good discussion to be had of, are certain stories, do they have certain implications? I don't think that's a reason that they shouldn't be made, but I think it's a very important discussion to be had. And like I said, we're all going to see the world differently, have different things that we're sensitive to. I'm very sensitive to the specific issue of teenage suicide because of my own history and things I've dealt with. Other people can be sensitive to the plot line inside of the Joker because of their own backgrounds and their own, for their own reasons and because of their own worldview. That's one thought on it. Other controversies, some people... one thing that's been annoying me is on Twitter, I've seen a lot of people that didn't like the movie. And if you don't like the movie, that's fine. There's a certain number of people that I've seen pretty consistently that have been extremely condescending in their dislike of the movie. And so they're presenting it as in a way that it's like, if you like this, you're an idiot. Because they're phrasing it as, oh, it's a movie that thinks it's smart, but it's just dumb. It's a movie for dumb people that think it's a smart movie. Like, they're phrasing it like that. And I've seen, not like one of these, pretty consistently on Twitter, people writing just snarky, rude, reviews. And if you don't like the movie, if you didn't think it was deep, if you didn't think it had something to say, if it didn't resonate with you, okay, that's totally fine. As soon as you start writing your movie review to step on the toes of people that did like it, that just seems like a jerk thing to do. Like, I don't even know why you would do that. So that's sort of bothering me. And for me, I watched the movie and I felt like it had something to say. Maybe it borrows too heavily from the template of Scorsese films, and it's not, Todd Phillips isn't Martin Scorsese. Okay. But does the movie tell its story well? Is it clear? Does it have an artistic bent to it? Is the cinematography great? Is there a wonderful story? Is there a fantastic central performance inside of it? And does it have something to say? I would argue yes to all of those things, in which case, some of the just people that didn't like it, I just reading the negative reviews, like on Rotten Tomatoes, I just been like, what did you have a bad day when you watched that? Why are you writing this like this? Anyway, that's kind of my take on the controversy. That I thought it was a great movie. I thought it had something to say, an important thing to say, and a movie that, coming out now in the middle of when society is having turmoil and struggling with issues of gun violence and why are these different things happening, telling a story in that context that kind of shines a mirror and it's a reflection of society, that's a good thing. That's what you're supposed to do with movies. That's what art is supposed to do, is explore ideas through storytelling, not just through lecturing. So, but like I said, there's a couple things that make me understand why some people would think it's dangerous. That's the piece where I can understand. It's not my burden I bear, but I understand where they're coming from. From there, let's kind of move on to the movie specifically itself, and we'll kick it off just talking about the tragedy of Arthur himself. That's one of the things I thought was pretty neat about this movie, is that they really make you care about Arthur at the beginning. He's obviously not charismatic. He's a deeply broken person that you see immediately all the pieces for someone that's going to snap and do something bad, that he has mental illness, he has a history of instability, and he's surrounded by people that aren't showing him grace and compassion. Whether he's being blatantly victimized by people stealing things from him and assaulting him, to the people around him that he just can't connect with them, and they're not making the effort to actually be his friend. In which case you start to just see the pieces of all this. And he doesn't have the self-awareness to know how to respond to people. So you have this wonderful early sequence in part side of it where he's riding up the elevator with the neighbor girl that he has a crush on. And she makes this little joke about, shooting herself in the head because of her daughter and the little things to it. And he's trying to process, how do I connect with her? And you're just watching it on his face as he's like, okay, I want to make a good impression. And so then wait till a little bit of time passes. And then he's like, I'll repeat the gesture. And so then if you're watching that, you have any idea of how humans respond to one another, him going like, shoot himself in the head after they've passed with no other context comes off unbelievably creepy. He's tried to do an endearing gesture to win her over, and instead you're like, oh no, please don't do that. And then as you go into it and you're watching and wanting to get in stand-up comedy, you're like, oh, like that is the worst thing for you to do. Stand-up comedy is the out of things you can do. It's one of the most brutal, vulnerable places you can put yourself, that you get immediately feedback of how successful you are. And this mentally unstable person that does not know how to connect with people, does not understand humor, does not understand funny, does not understand timing or when to do things, wants to put himself up there and stand-up comedy. You see that and you go, oh dear, no, please don't do this. So things start to unfold inside the movie, and he goes somewhere and it goes just as badly as you would imagine it would go, which sets up, this major plot line inside of the film. But they just do such a good job of immediately letting us see the tragedy that's about to unfold in front of us, and all the different pieces of how this isn't going to work, and how even his social worker doesn't seem to understand how messed up of a person this is, or to know what to do with him. And you just see all of it lining up for what's going to happen in the second half of the film, which causes that sense of tension and dread inside of us. Because as much as we came to watch a Joker movie where the Joker does evil things, we don't want to see Arthur become the Joker. We want to see the Joker, but we don't want to see this guy who I just want to put smile on people's faces. I just want to bring joy into the world. I just want to take care of my mother. I want to help kids at the hospital, to him as a sociopath. We don't want to see him become that. And that's what makes the movie so painful to watch at certain points in time. From there, you kind of go through the movie. Then you have the thing that kind of starts to really cause this snap inside of him, is that the social worker loses her job.
All I have are negative thoughts.
And the funding is cut, which kind of becomes one of the social unrest inside of it that's intentionally mirroring modern day discussions that are happening. And whether you're talking about the elite that think they can save the city but don't seem to have real compassion for them. We'll talk about Thomas Wayne in a little bit. Or proper funding so that people that have mental illness can be identified and get the help that they need. Obviously mirroring things inside of society. So you see that, and when you take something like that has a truth to it, and then you personify it, you have an actual image that you're seeing of a person that we, at this point in time in the movie when this happens, we know he's on the edge. He's been given a gun, like he is in such a bad place, and then it's, funding's been cut, and we know exactly where that path leads. I think that that's a potent way to make a point and communicate something inside the movie, and as a plot point can just seem like, funding got cut. Suddenly that's very compelling when the funding was cut for the thing that's going to stop Arthur from becoming the Joker. So then we go through the movie and we get to the point in time where he goes to a hospital with the gun that the guy gave him, and he drops it, and then it actually plays for a pretty good joke inside the movie as he drops it, and he tries to kind of play it off that he brought a gun to it. It's part of my gag. It's part of my gag. Loses his job. He's riding home on the bus, or on the subway or whatever. And you start watching these guys harassing people. You're watching and you're thinking, oh no, this is like, I know he's got a gun. I know he's super unstable. this is not going to go well. This is not going to be a good thing. They start harassing him, and inside of it, the whole time I'm thinking like you're torn. I don't know how you felt in the movie, but I felt like literally, okay, now I want him to take these guys out because these are unbelievable douchebags. These guys need to be taught a lesson. But if Arthur uses that gun on these guys, he's not coming back. I want Arthur to get justice here. I want Arthur to win in this situation. I don't want him to do what I know what he's going to do. So they just start kicking him, beating him down. And then you just see this guy's head get blown off. And then he shoots another guy and you're like, yeah, oh no. Just like this total mix of emotions, which is like the exact stomach turning feeling that they were going for with this movie. And almost the appeal of this film is how you feel dual emotions inside of the film. Yeah, sorry about that. My camera decided to, for a second there, to focus in on Joker's face, which makes sense. We are talking about the Joker, and so then autofocus went in on him and not me, so I had to fix that real quick. But so we want him to get justice and to be a winner because he's such a loser inside of this. We don't want him to be a killer. And then he shoots the two guys, and the other guy starts running, and you're like, oh no, he's going to actually hunt this guy down, and then like follows the guy and kills him, and you're like, oh no, he's just heading down this path now. Just the way that sequence was done was just really nice. And then it starts going into like this artistic thing. Like Todd Phillips really brought kind of this artistic touch to it of these sequences you saw in the trailer of him, kind of dancing to the music slowly and putting his arms in the air, and all that you see it in it. It's the birth of the Joker, where there's at this point in time, there's two people. There's Arthur, the loser, the guy that's mentally ill and needs someone to like help him, that just keeps failing at everything. And then there's the winner that he sees, like this other persona that won. 3 guys started messing with him and he won. And the way that he is the winner is through psychotic violence. And you go, oh no, we're as cool as this is, I don't want Arthur to be this person. And so I just thought that was really cool. One thing I forgot to mention about the tragedy of Arthur is early on in the movie, it's pretty clear that we're watching the film from Arthur's perspective, and you pick up probably that some of the things that you're seeing aren't real. Things that are happening, Arthur is not, he's imagining things that have not actually happened, and where, he goes and, kisses the girl and she's into him and going on dates with him and stuff like that. You're like, okay, I'm pretty sure this isn't happening, but when are we going to snap out of this? I just thought that was just a really neat way to have a movie told from his perspective. He's delusional. He is not sane. And so the storytelling is not entirely sane. We're seeing what he sees. We're believing what he believes, and it's not real. Early on they established that because he starts watching the TV show and then imagines himself being on it. And so I did a really nice way to kind of mess with the audience in a way that has a consistent narrative through the perspective of Arthur, who turns into the Joker as all of this goes along. All right, moving through the movie. My voice just cracked. Thomas Wayne. Wow, Thomas Wayne came off a pretty big douchebag inside this movie. Pretty much all the rich people in Gotham come off like douchebags. Thomas Wayne being, I guess he didn't, I was going to say he doesn't assault him, but he does. But he's presented early on in the film as his Arthur's mother is, obsessed with him and writing him all these letters. And then after the initial killings, they start doing the news broadcast of him, and you hear him talk about it, and you can see that he's kind of clueless of what's going on. And you can see kind of, once again, the civil unrest inside of a lot of American society of you have the rich politician, the rich businessman that thinks he has all the solutions, saying things that in and of themselves in a vacuum are not untrue, but it has an ignorance of the gritty reality of the street. And so you see Thomas Wayne saying all this, and we're seeing it through the perspective of Arthur, and you're like, ooh, man, Thomas Wayne is not the hero that his son would be for this city. And you pretty quickly do not like Thomas Wayne at all. Then Arthur finds the letters, reads the letters, discovers that his mom believes that he is Thomas Wayne's son. So then Arthur, who's looking for a father figure, someone to guide him because he knows he's not well and kind of seems to have some awareness he's probably not heading in the right direction, starts to reach out to the father that he never knew, leading to some super creepy sequences with his, at the moment he believes, brother, whom he's putting his fingers in Bruce Wayne's mouth and curling it up. When they first introduced the idea that they're brothers, I was like, I hope you find a way to pay this off well, because my gut reaction is to not like the idea of Joker and Batman being brothers. This is not the direction that I hope that this goes. And, there's always been kind of they're two sides of the same coin and things like that. And one is all the brilliant detective strategist and the other one is the agent of chaos. And so making it a little bit too on the nose if they are brothers. So as the story unfolds and They have the confrontation between Joker, Thomas Wayne, and Thomas Wayne once again just being total jerk with no compassion to this guy that's very clearly not well, very clearly mentally ill, and he's just a total jerk to him. And then when Arthur starts acting all funky and not normal and laughing, punches him in the face, just solidifying his douchebaggery and making so we don't feel too bad for him when he gets shot at the end. It doesn't feel as tragic, except for you feel bad for this little boy Bruce. At the same time, we know who he's going to become, so can't feel too bad for him. But just so much solidifying the fact that, like, okay, this, anyway, I don't remember where I was going with some of that stuff, but once again, just building these pieces of the tragedy of Arthur and the guy that he thought was going to be the hero for him turns out to be the total absolute jerk to him. So then he ends up going to Arkham, steals a file, reads it, and discovers that his mom is the absolute worst, or not the worst, but quite terrible. So she allowed him to be abused. She lied to him. She herself is unstable. Inside of that, I thought there was a couple of oddities inside of it that they portray them as both being kind of delusional people that are not in touch with reality, which would make sense if it was his actual mother, but they keep saying he's adopted. In which case, if he's adopted, I'm not quite sure it makes as much sense that both of them are this level of delusional and have sociopathic tendencies. That seemed like saying that he was adopted probably didn't help. Like I don't know if that was a plot point they needed to put in there to just solidify the fact that he wasn't Thomas Wayne's kid. But I think it would have made more sense if it was the mother. Like they just went, no, here's the paperwork. This guy, this deadbeat right here's your dad, not. I don't know. Maybe you guys noticed something about what would be the benefit of him being adopted. I wasn't quite sure what that would be. But to say that it just seemed like it would make sense that some deadbeat that was abusive would have worked better for the plot point to say that she's delusional. This guy is a sociopathic kid that beats kids, that say that that's who his dad is. And you blend the two together and you get the Joker. Seems like that would make a little bit more sense than what we got. So once again, minus squabbles. Love the movie. Moving on from there. So as we kind of continue through the film, at this point in time, he pretty well fully starts transitioning from Arthur into Joker. So he goes to kills his mother. I don't remember the exact timeline. Somewhere he's already watched the broadcast to where he's been humiliated on television, and he realizes he's being made fun of, and he gets the invite to be on the show and takes it. And you're like, oh, that's not going to go well at all. Whenever that goes down. So he goes, kills his mother, which pretty mean thing to do. He goes home. Oh, and there's the sequence there where I guess he left there and he went to the girl's hotel or apartment, and did the movie ever make it clear if he killed them or not? I didn't. I thought it was ambiguous. I think it was implied that he killed them because she didn't call the cops on him. Therefore, they're probably dead. But I wasn't sure if it clarified if he did actually kill her. So he goes to his place. It's the day of his big performance, puts the makeup on. The two guys show up from the clown company, and they're having the conversation. And just in the middle of it, he blows the one guy's head off, or smashes the guy's head, just beats it brutally into the wall while the other guy's watching. And as he just starts transitioning into murder's hilarious and things like that. But there's still just a little bit of Arthur in there at this point in time. So he kills the one guy, and the little person is there. I don't know what the correct term at the prop right now is to save that. And it leads to a series of unbelievably uncomfortable, hilarious moments as he locks the door, or Joker, Arthur locked the door as they walked in. And so then the one guy's trying to leave, and Arthur's kind of like, you were nice to me, I'm going to let you go. Like, and you don't know, like, is that the joke that he's going to let it go and shoot him in the back of the head? So he starts walking by, and he's like, actually, and jumps at it to scare him. And you're like, that is so funny and not funny at the same time, what you just did there. Walks over to the door, and it's latched too high for him to be able to get to it, which once again, you're like, oh dear, like this is such a wildly inappropriate joke that's so funny, so terrifying, and such a great crafted little scene that has jokes inside of it that are deeply dark while being unbelievably tense, and this big character moment as he transitions into being the Joker inside of it in really powerful ways. And also, as all this is going on, the city starts to descend into chaos and Joker worship, clown worship, and stuff like that. So Arthur sees the fact that suddenly people notice him because he killed people. And he was never noticed. People didn't pay attention. Gave him no respect. He wasn't important until he killed people. And suddenly, the guy that really wants to be respected and people to pay attention to him has a purpose in life. And you see kind of debating before he goes, is he going to, is the punchline to his joke he's going to kill himself on TV because his life doesn't matter? Is that what it is? And then as his journey from his apartment to the show happens, police chase him, and then on the subway, people are backing him. Riots are breaking out. He's seeing people with clown masks and everything. And he sees he's important, that he gets noticed for violence, which once again, understandably, there's people that watch that, and that the protagonist of our movie, the lesson that the protagonist learns is, I get attention when I kill people. It's understandable that people would see that and have issue with it and not enjoy that story. That's not like of people taking offense at that. It's not the craziest. Like that kind of makes sense that people feel that way. It's not the way that I take it. But also, it's not like everyone that feels that way is just some pansy with some sort of weird agenda. Fairly reasonable agenda to not want to celebrate that sort of thing. So then he journeys, makes it to the show, and you have the whole interactions are interesting because it wasn't entirely clear exactly what the personality was of Robert De Niro's character. Was he a jerk and a bully that was just picking on a guy? Was he a guy that thought something was funny, but he didn't fully understand that what he was doing? And I think in and of itself, that's a commentary on so much of society that's very interesting, especially in the social media age where we see everything that celebrities do and all sorts of people that do dumb things. Suddenly they get promoted they get their 15 minutes of fame for just a dumb video that they post on the internet. And we mock them mercilessly. We do that. Like, that's what we're doing. And we don't perceive of ourselves as being the bad guys inside of the story, the bully that's ruining someone's life. But there's this person that just films some dumb thing. It goes viral and we laugh at them constantly. Like, this is a constant thing that happens. And this character, Robert De Niro's character, becomes that. He is the face of so much of what society does with viral videos and goofy people that are oddities that embarrass themselves, that we don't stop to think about the consequence on that individual person. This guy just sees good television. Like, oh, that was a good joke that I got. What if we got him on the show? We probably get a few more funny moments. He does not care about how that's going to hurt this other person, but he doesn't, he seems to be kind of friendly backstage, and like he's giving the guy a chance, and he just wants to, have some fun with this guy that's probably going to make a fool of himself. He doesn't seem to think, I'm a cruel, sadistic person for taking a mentally ill person and laughing at them on television. So that's interesting little commentary. So then Joker comes out on the show and he does his little routine that he practiced to play up to the audience. So he kisses the previous lady, and you see Joker actually appear. That Joaquin Phoenix transformed into Arthur, and now Arthur has transformed into Joker. Arthur is this very insecure person that doesn't know what to do in front of people and says the wrong things, and it doesn't know what to do or how to process the world. When he's in places and people start laughing, he doesn't get the joke, and so he laughs late. He's out of sync with everyone else. And then Joker shows up as this confident person that's confrontational and is there to cause trouble. And you see the Joker born on this set as the movie kind of starts to like clearly state its thesis in a horrifying manner. That in the one sense that we want Arthur to get his justice and his moment to say his piece, and we don't want him to become the Joker, and he fully transitions into the Clown Prince of Crime, this psychopath on this television show, and they have the back and forth dialogue between the two of them as he's confessing to his crimes, and all leading up to him pulling out the gun and shooting the guy in the head, gets arrested, and then the city just starts to unfold as there's so much civil unrest, and he is just such the face of all of this that people want riots start breaking out in the streets, which led to the little Wayne family sequence as the riots break out. This is the reason that the Waynes left the theater, which interesting little twist, because like they didn't go so heavy-handed as to say, like, because you sort of probably were thinking as you're watching the movie, okay, Arthur hates Wayne, so Joker's going to kill Wayne once he transitions. And then it doesn't really play out like that. It plays out like Joker creates the chaos in Gotham that births the tragedy that births Batman from Bruce Wayne, which I thought was a smarter way to do that. If they were going to include that in the film, that's the better way to do that. I wasn't sure if they should have gone so heavy-handed in actually showing it. I mean, it's kind of cool to see it. It's also kind of like, okay, we kind of know where this is going. I mean, since it is kind of just like almost an Easter egg little sequence, them showing the pearls and everything, the iconic shot of Bruce Wayne in the alley with his dead parents and the pearls on the ground and everything like that. It felt kind of Easter eggy the way they did it, but it did tie into things inside of the film. So it was a representation of some of the messaging even inside of the film as a payoff to this whole Thomas Wayne plot line inside the film. So from there, you have kind of the riots breaking out and people freeing the Joker. And then it kind of closes out the film in the heat, like people celebrating once again, where people would get uncomfortable with this film, that for a healthy person, we watch the tragedy of now Arthur is a hero because he's become a psycho. And some people would take that as not good, a bad message. Once again, I can see where people are coming from. And it transitions into these final shots of him in the loony bin trying to escape and running down the halls and probably killing nurses and things like that. A little bit of ambiguity of like, was he crazy all along and imagining all of this, or was he captured immediately and now he's in Arkham and he's starting to imagine all these things? And since we know that he's an unreliable narrator, that we're seeing what's inside of his head and the visions, that it could be all inside of his head. I certainly I take it as he's arrested and he's continuing to have little visions inside of his head about things. The way the unreliable narrative was used inside the film was he's actually doing things and having a distorted view of what he saw. So how much of some of these things might have been exaggerated, that could be a little bit unclear. But the fact that he's doing evil things and he has killed people seems to be fit in line with some of these other, just perhaps like the little piece at the end where people are praising him. That could be the part that's the imagination, because he was arrested. Therefore, he imagines this thing where everyone's clapping for him and trying to rescue him. But I would interpret it as he did kill people. He did become this hero to the city and then got arrested and is now trying to escape. That was certainly my take on the end of the film. I've only seen it one time. Perhaps I missed some things. Certainly, I'm sure I missed some things. Even as I was writing this, I was like, when exactly did some of the events happen inside of it? I wasn't quite sure. Anyway, that's my take on it. I love it. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. Almost certainly will be in my top 10 of the year. I loved it. It was different. It was ambitious. It's a comic book movie that's not trying to be a spectacle film. It's not a blockbuster. It's not an action film. It's not the Joker with his gangsters, Robin Banks with Harley Quinn. No, it's a character study of Arthur and the tragedy of Arthur turning into the Joker. Tell me what you thought down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. Keep talking movies too much. And come back tomorrow because I'm going to rank the Jokers, and that should be a lot of fun. Bye-bye.